last night, members of the Parliamentary Joint Committee on Intelligence and Security were shown a gruesome 43-minute video by the Israeli ambassador captured during Hamas's attack on Israel on the 7th of October. It captured the reality of what actually happened on that dark day. Shadow Defence Minister Andrew Hastie watched the video himself and he joins me now. Andrew, thank you for joining me, and a warning to viewers, some of what they might be about to hear may be distressing and graphic, but what did you see in this video?
Good evening, Caleb. Well, the Israeli ambassador offered to show the video to members of the Parliamentary Committee for Intelligence and Security, and we thought it was a special obligation on us to watch it. It is important that we understand the true character of a listed terror organisation like Hamas, and so all coalition members attended. And I've got to say, it was horrific, it was brutal. It was 43 minutes. On it, there were 138 murders, which is less than 10% of the Israelis who were murdered that day by Hamas. And can I say, having seen it, evil truly did walk the earth on October 7th in southern Israel.
I mean, obviously, the layperson is not privy to that video, and probably nor should they be. But having watched that, when you hear people like Francesca Albanese, for instance, who last night was on the project, more or less suggesting, and she's the UN Special Rapporteur on Palestine, human rights, etc., etc. She was basically suggesting last night that Israel should not have retaliated after the events of October 7th. For anyone who has watched that video as you have, I'm sure you'd have a very different view.
She's absolutely clueless. In fact, she's outright wrong, and what she's saying is just, I think, appalling. Because frankly, we saw female IDF soldiers cowering under a table, gunned down by Hamas in cold blood. We saw two young boys with their father have a grenade thrown at them. The father was then gunned down in cold blood in front of them, in his underwear. One of the little boys lost an eye. You can see the impact. It was tough. The point I raise, the point I want your viewers to understand is that Hamas, they started this, and those who call for a ceasefire don't understand how ruthless and how brutal these people are. And so for Israel, they have to act. They can't be weak. Hamas can end this right now by surrendering and handing over the hostages, or the only alternative is for Israel to destroy politically and militarily Hamas. And that's the decision that they're facing. And so they're pressing on. And I've got to say, it's Hamas who are using hospitals and civilians as human shields. The blood that has been spilled is on Hamas. But there's a reason we watched it, and that is so that we can communicate directly with the Australian people the true character of Hamas on October 7th, so that we can repudiate the comments made by Ms Albanese at the National Press Club as just foolish and outright wrong.
And I mean, you are a military man. You know the realities of war, and you, having watched that video, are emotional about it. And that speaks to the humanity of what has happened. And that is what is missing from a lot of this discussion. I mean, people talk in abstract terms, as Penny Wong did last Sunday on Insiders, and Ali did this week on this network, about, you know, the idea of a ceasefire or a humanitarian pause, as they wrap it up in their poly speak. But the reality of that, as you note, is that you can only have a ceasefire if both parties come to the table. Now, when you're dealing with a terrorist organisation like Hamas, that is not going to happen. The only situation in which you reach a ceasefire, is either to wipe Hamas off the face of the planet or to scare them into submission. There's no other way.
That's right. Every tyrant who's ever walked the earth preys on weakness. And so this is a time to be strong. This is a time to stand up to evil. And as I said, Hamas can surrender and hand back the hostages, or they have to be destroyed both militarily and politically. And that's the path they have chosen. War is incredibly messy, and I've seen it firsthand myself, and decisions are very, very difficult and mistakes are made. There is a cost to war, there's no question, but this war was started by Hamas, and again, they have agency here. They can surrender and hand back the hostages.
Now, before we move on, Andrew, the Chinese President Xi Jinping has met with his US counterpart today in his first trip to America in 6 years, and both leaders have pledged to reduce tensions at the APEC forum. Xi said that turning our back on each other is not an option, but he's also warned Biden that that Taiwan's reunification into China is quote-unquote unstoppable, and that the US should stop arming Taiwan and support China's, in his words, peaceful reunification. And bizarrely, Biden appeared to agree. Take a look.
Look, I reiterate what I've said since I've become president, what every previous president of late has said, that we maintain the agreement that there is a one China policy, and that I'm not going to change that. That's not going to change. And so that's about the extent to which we discussed it.
Why would he do that?
Well, that's a good question for President Biden, Caleb. But can I say it's a good thing that President Xi and President Biden are meeting. It's unremarkable that there is geopolitical competition between the United States and China. Of course, Australia is a very close partner of the United States. We also have trade ties with China, so this is a very difficult situation for us to navigate. But I do want to remind your viewers that Australia has taken a position through AUKUS. We have taken a position through the investment that we're about to receive from Microsoft, $5 billion worth into the Australian Public Service for artificial intelligence, which the Prime Minister announced in San Francisco today. So we know who our friends are. At the same time, we need to maintain good relations with all our neighbours, and that's the challenge for this government, without giving away our sovereignty and without being weak into the bargain.
Andrew Hastie, thank you so much for your insight tonight. I really appreciate it.